Good morning and welcome to Techman Talks Dynamics. I'm here with the usual four, Liam, Matt, Liz and myself, James. So it's just about the end of 2024. We're just, as the Christmas jumper probably shows, and we're wrapping up the year and thinking about 2025. And we thought we'd just recap the year. It's been quite an eventful year. I think lots has happened. The move to SaaS is it's not done yet, but it's well underway for lots and lots of clients. We're starting to see more and more stuff come on the SaaS platform that perhaps is not available on premise. I think that's very much the trend. Is some of the bigger sites have moved now. We're seeing the transaction counts, the performance issues are all kind of, we know what we need to do and all the rest of it. So feels in a great state. I think the other thing for me this year is Microsoft discovering that Business Central is a very good product and that they should actually give it more attention than it's perhaps had in the past. And so we're seeing very much Business Central as the product which has the product of the moment for Microsoft right now. And then we've had AI and agents and Copilot and all of that stuff. So where do we want to start, guys?
I think when you refer to the customers, the move onto the SaaS platform, I did some numbers yesterday for our company meeting tomorrow. And I think we are now at the point where we are almost at 50% of our customers now and our user base probably on that platform or in project to move to that platform. What we've also seen is quite a lot of customers taking advantage of being able to have a multi-tenanted environment. So where previously they've tried to shoehorn a German organisation into a UK database and have some kind of weird bespoke to allow for any German localisation, it's actually now very easy to spin up a German tenant and to move your German data into that and take advantage of having the proper German localisation, especially when they start to introduce new localisation and new legislation in those countries. It becomes more and more difficult to bring that into the UK database, so it becomes very easy to spin up an additional production environment. So I think,
and that would have been a completely separate license on premise, so it would have been
it's so easy.
Unviable.
I think for one of our customers, we've done it within 2 weeks, got them a new German environment, moved everything over, and they're up and running. It's very, very easy to do.
And because the user license is on SaaS, the key thing for this is because you license per user, that user can go into Germany, can go into the UK, could go into a US. If you're licensed for any of those different environments. You only have to pay for an additional production environment, which isn't a lot of money.
And we're seeing more large organisations. I mean, there's two things I've seen in the last 12 months. A, consolidation just generally of their Microsoft 365 platforms, that they're moving more.
One Azure AD.
Yep. And then large organisations going for BC. So, multinationals.
It can take it though, can't it? Now
absolutely.
It can take it.
Yeah.
So
not just
with
the
the multi-tenanted environment, it can be done, and they're essentially separate environments, and
it's still a lot more cost effective
that way, and it's much more cost effective. But also gives you the opportunity to think about kind of your strategy across all your different platforms. What you deploy to each one. You don't have to have exactly the same deployment, but you can kind of have a change control process that says, I'm going to deploy this into all of my country environments, or it's very specific
not on the
to
same
the UK.
day, which is quite a good idea.
Well, but you can have, each country can have a system that meets its needs without having what you would have had previously, which is 5 completely separate databases, which would have to go through 5 completely different upgrade projects, because essentially they become different systems. You can be very controlled. And you can use tools to make sure that the data is managed across those different environments as well, so that there is a chart of account structure, there is a dimension structure that can be shared, and you can use the intercompany tools across those as well. So it gives people much more flexibility to be able to meet the needs of the individual country requirements.
The master data management, where you can set up data in the master company and replicate across multiple environments. Yes, you need a third-party tool for that. You can't use the standard one from Microsoft because that's just one company to another, not environment to environment.
Mr.
But it's
Trick
still really
didn't they?
good. Well, yeah, they wrote it with change company all over it, and so it's going to be really difficult for them to change. So
we've got a tool set for that if people need it.
And actually, there's quite a few different tool sets, aren't there? That different partners use different ones. It doesn't really matter.
One of our customers has written their own using the Power Platform.
Yeah,
it was really slick solution to replicate item data.
It is. If you want that on too many different entities, I think that would get
it wouldn't suit everybody.
Yes.
But it was a really slick solution and very much in their own control, which they like. It's not for everybody, but it's a solution.
Coming back to what I said about performance, one customer went on to SaaS within 3 months. They got 50 million GL entries. And performance.
Yeah, that's why everyone else's performance is delayed.
But that's if
I'm joking, by the way. That didn't really happen.
But you need to kind of there's a process to manage it, to warm it up, and providing you follow the rules and you understand what they're doing. Microsoft really seem to have a handle of migrating it through the different performance tiers now. So
and that happens automatically, doesn't it? Yeah. If you're giving it a lot of work to do.
If you're slow today because you're giving it a lot of work to do, chances are it will be less slow tomorrow and probably not slow at all by a week's time.
Yeah.
Well, when you say we've got 50% of our customer base, thereabouts, new business, it's just not even a conversation.
It has been for
a few years now.
Yeah.
Well, we're now
we're
SaaS
talking
only,
about
aren't we, really,
legacy customers now. The kind of business as usual people, they are now probably 50%.
And the other thing, I think it's over 50. If you looked at the customers we had 12 months ago and certainly 2 years ago, over 50%. Because the reason it's still 50% is because we're having quite a few legacy customers transfer into us on their way to SaaS. So that's interesting. We have seen the first few customers come off the end of the 3-year promo that Microsoft do.
Yeah, that is something for people to be aware of this year. A lot of people 3 years ago took out bridge to cloud promotions and have happily been paying what they think is their normal monthly operating cost, but at some point this year it will go up. There's obviously some price adjustments, let's say, as well on top of that, which
up and down.
Well, down and up, to be strictly accurate.
Yeah, so if you're doing your budgets for next year, it's probably worth looking at
what's going on with that?
Officially, there is a price increase coming, right? So that's a fact. The other adjustment, we'll talk about that in a moment. There will be a 5% increase, from what Microsoft is saying, on all their subscription pricing from April the 1st. Okay. We're assuming that will include Business Central and Dynamics, any product. Then they also announced for the UK, and it was only the UK that went down, a currency correction because of the pound against the euro.
Against the US dollar, I guess.
Against the US dollar, sorry. The cost of Business Central now, we can be able to buy it cheaper from February the 1st by about 5 or 6%, which means the price will level out. However, they will always look at the currency rate that you're paying for the software every 6 months. So for at least 6 months from Feb 1st, we're going to be 5% down. And we'll see what happens as we go to the back end of the year in 2025. But yeah, you're looking at about a flat price.
And we can still do the promo pricing for people who haven't yet took advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The promo's been extended. Bridge to Cloud has now been extended to the end of 2025. If you've not
done that transition yet, that is still available. And if you take it out before the price increase,
yes, you will lock in for those 3 years.
Yeah.
And to remind people, Bridge to the Cloud is a discount of
40%
for people who had a traditional.
Only if you've got a current enhancement plan.
The other thing to say with this price increase is most of our customers are on 12-month commitments, so they'll see no change because it's 12 months from when you took that out.
Correct.
It will persist.
It won't. Any of the price changes won't impact until you come up to renewal. Okay.
So the people who are going to be fortunate this year are the people who are renewing in March, because effectively they'll get the price discount for the currency correction, but they won't see the price increase in April.
Correct.
It is just so simple.
And the other thing, to mention is
Microsoft.
The price increase coming, that 5% price increase coming in April. If you pay annually in advance rather than paying monthly, or paying every month, even though you commit for 12, you will not have that price increase.
Yeah, so up until now, there has been no massive benefit
Paying Microsoft in advance
a
for 12
year in
months.
advance.
Correct.
Whereas now, you will pay less if you do that. Because before there would be no reason to do it.
No.
Might as well keep the cash.
Absolutely.
Then now if you do that before any price increases, then you're locking that free. But you don't get that anyway, so you're saying. So
you would never get it correct if you...
Right, okay, wow. Okay.
I mean, having spent 5 years talking to people about subscription and how you pay monthly and you pay as you use and it goes up and it goes down and all the rest of it, it feels like suddenly Microsoft is reversing the whole situation and bringing it back to... what's going on here?
The benefit I think is...
worked out the admin of doing it every month.
I don't think it's the
admin.
I think people like us, partners, have moaned at Microsoft because if a customer has an annual commit and then pays monthly but suddenly stops paying or goes bump, we as a partner have to pay Microsoft for the rest of the term.
Yes.
Right? So I think Microsoft, every partner has moaned at Microsoft about this.
We're not credit insurers, but we've ended up as them.
Yeah, so Microsoft, I think, have said, well, I'll tell you what, if you get the cash in, you'll have that. There's a benefit to the customer. You'll pay to all us, and so we won't be on the hook if they stop paying. That's the only real reason I can see. But for the customer now, there is a 5%. You will get a 5% discount. The only I'll caveat all of what we just said is we have only had this announcement around the 5% increase through the distributors at the moment. I'm waiting to see the actual Microsoft, the official thing about what that was. But that's what we're being told, and it's come from all.
So you could actually disregard the whole of the last 10 minutes.
All the distributors have come out and said the same thing. So I can't see Microsoft U-turning massively, but. The devil can be in the detail with Microsoft licenses.
So if you are trying to look at kind of budgeting for next year and forecasting costs, then it's worth talking to your engagement manager who can help you work out what your costs will be next year and how you can minimise the impact of any price increases.
Yes, and the other thing with that is that's not just Dynamics. So if you've got 100 Office licenses, then they're all going to be hit with this.
Your Microsoft licensing all up, not just your Business Central, which is probably a small part really. Of
normally it's a lot smaller than your Office,
but
it's a bigger value.
Big license count. You could there could be potentially some savings there as well. I think a lot of people still don't take advantage of some of the options.
No, you've got your attached licensing
and things. So again,
you also
engagement managers can help you work out the best.
I mean, this is the first price increase for SaaS, Business Central SaaS, I can remember.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
5 or 6
I think there was one.
No. That was a currency correction.
Okay, not a price increase. It was a currency correction.
Which
increased the price.
When we had a bit of a weird budget. Then
in the UK, yes.
Yeah, and then the Microsoft.
We had
quite a big jump in cost there, but so we always thought they would never correct it the other way, and at least they have recognised it this time and said there is going to be a 5-6% change downwards. So.
But I mean, if you're running on premise, you look at the cost of energy, which Microsoft spends a lot of money on energy for all its data centres and so on. That has gone up significantly in that 5-year
and don't
period.
Forget,
so
if you're stuck on perpetual, your enhancement for every year has gone up percentage point, and will continue.
Yeah, that's just to drive people to SaaS.
Absolutely, yeah. But the cost
but also for us as a partner, we are finding it is becoming more expensive to support the legacy customers because we are, our newer members of the team, we have to teach them not only the new versions, the old version.
Is SaaS, SaaS. Yeah. It has cost more. I think the popularity of Business Central has meant that Microsoft have just kept the price and they've ridden that way. But I can't sit here and say I think it's unfair for them to raise the price. I'm sure their cost of providing the service has gone up.
And on a subscription, we are talking.
They can't do this every year.
On that note, what I think has improved this year is the quality of the updates and the issues that we've had. I don't think, in terms of the stopping and starting and the pulling and the timescales, I think it's been a little bit better.
I think that, yes, by and large, I agree with that, Liz. I think that they've dropped the ball a little bit with the whole subscription add-on that's just come into 25. I can't sit here and say that adding an extension that they bought in from a third party that adds a a dimension that
sets
sets up source codes that kind of creates data in every company that you have without your permission.
That was a bit of faux pas, wasn't it? Yeah.
So I think they need to, my contention to Microsoft is, why is every Microsoft extension installed by default as part of the upgrade? Yeah. I don't get the option. What's happening with recommended apps? Why can't it recommend it to me, but only install it if I need it?
Yeah.
And
why add that complexity if you never going to use it and you never need it? Absolutely.
And potentially all the testing, and then there's a whole bunch of, and that would allow, even if they did that for a year or so on its initial introduction, it would allow all of us to feedback of, there's a whole bunch of feedback around some of the naming of some of the pages, which confuses it with service management and its subscription management. That's a relatively easy thing for Microsoft to change, but they've put it in everybody's production tenant now, and
it does annoy. And the other thing that's annoyed me, they still haven't sorted out the pricing. So the old SaaS pricing is still there. We've still got lots of customers using it. They say that's going to happen next year. Deprecation of the old pricing.
Every year it gets pushed.
But the problem is nobody's now taking it seriously. When we're trying to get people to do it, they say, "Well, it's not going to happen anyway."
Well, it's a kind of poison chalice, isn't it? In terms of
it's so important. I think we're going to have a push. I think in the new year and getting everybody over to the new SaaS pricing, because it's going to happen eventually.
I mean, it's in terms of new implementations. It's been a few years since we haven't used it.
Exactly. But
I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff which was revolutionary at the beginning. I mean, you said to me the other day, Matt, how long is it since we used an RDLC report layouts? We've used Word consistently for a while now on even things like manufacturing reports and different things.
But a lot of the customers that have migrated from older versions will still be using that. So again, there's an opportunity, I think, to look at that and do those.
Well, I think Microsoft's kind of saying now that there won't be any standard RDLC reports in the product. They're going through and changing them over to Word reports and deprecating the RDLC reports.
So what would you recommend for somebody who'd got their, all of their documents were in RDLC? Would you recommend they now move to Word layouts?
Yeah, I think at some point they're going to have to.
Well, I know they're going to have to, but surely it's better to do
That's
it.
That's unofficial.
I've seen some amazing layouts that customers have created.
Yeah, I agree.
Really well presented.
I think.
And the flexibility when customers can change their own.
And it's surely better to do it in a controlled way rather than wait until you absolutely have to.
Yeah, 100%. Although
so I'm trying to convince me with the pricing, but
I mean, that Microsoft have made the tools for Word layouts better each time. So if you'd done it 12 months ago, it would be easier to do it now, which is a bit of a but that's a bit of a motivation
the risk of being
to
an early
leave
adopter, isn't
it?
Yeah.
Leave it till late. But I think it has got to the point where you should do it.
I mean, the last release where the word add-in appeared, so gave you flexibility on hiding columns and rows in tables. That was the final bit we needed. Before, we'd still use a word layout, but we'd have to get the dev to go and change the code that generates the data to give us
definitely a subject
some
for
data.
A customer workshop, I think, next year.
Customer workshop, I think, also show the customers themes, because the idea of being able to put a Christmas theme or a promotional theme behind your documents. Yes, not just to jump a theme, and get messaging onto your key business documents very simply, and the customer being able to do that because it's so straightforward.
Okay,
I
so
think
that's
for some customers that's a real kind of win.
Just different.
So that's the point of
different
the next
layouts
year,
per
then.
customer. So if I'm sending an invoice to this customer, I can have a different layout to that customer. That's just standard. Been there for a while. Also, when you go to print a document, you can choose a different layout. So you can even have a complete. Now, if you want a commercial invoice off the back of a sales order, take your order confirmation, create a version, call it your commercial invoice.
Call it what you want.
Yeah,
that's so true.
So I think
definitely a point of next year for people.
Yeah, and that's probably a good point. Is that I think there's Microsoft have really picked the game up in the last probably 2 years now, but certainly in the last 12 months in terms of core functionality. So what the application actually does as opposed to the environment and so on. There's lots of stuff there But clients, I think, my perception is a lot of clients are still doing what they've always done.
I think that's really true, and I think when we did day 2 at the customer day this year, which was a much more kind of detailed day and very focused on the latest version and very focused on core functionality and making sure you're using what you've got, some of the comments that came back that people were like, well, I just didn't know that was there. That's going to save me so much time. There is so much there in the product now that wasn't there. And if you are just upgrading like for like every time and not looking at what you're doing and what you're using, then you're not getting the most out of your system. And I think as we go into next year and the cost of people becomes more and more, then you want to make sure that your system is as efficient as possible. So if you're still doing things in spreadsheets, if you're still doing things manually, if you're still doing a manual bank rec or manually taking a trial balance and keying it into Excel to produce your P&L and your balance sheet, please don't.
I think there's a lot of there's more potential even than you can kind of get your head around. So I was having there was a discussion on, I think it was LinkedIn or Yammer or one of the groups with one of the lots of people from the community and Microsoft team, and I was talking about kind of like being able to do a report that says, if the exchange rate goes to this, what would the impact be for me? What's our debtors, creditors, banks, all the rest of it, and what would that look like? And shout out to Kenny from Microsoft, because he came back and said an Excel report. I was like, well, where are you going to store what the exchange rate might go to within Business Central? Because you just have one exchange rate for, from this date, GBP against USD or Euro or whatever. And he said, well, with an Excel report, you can have a tab. You can just type it in the tab and it will recalculate it through. So you pull the information about the balances for each currency through to Excel, have the separate tab where you put in what the currency, what you think the worst case it could be, and suddenly it tells you what the impact is. Yeah, great. I'd never really thought about storing master data and combining that into a different way. So there's lots of different kind of techniques that we've got that get us away from, what we've probably previously done, which is create a whole scheme of things within Business Central to do what, probably you're only going to do once a month or something. It's not going to be an annual thing.
Go live readiness assessment this week, and customer is manufacturer, and part of what they were showing through in terms of production planning, they brought up this, and this was the user. I go to this screen, I hit analyze mode, and there's one that was saved, and this is all of our machine centers by date, and this is our current load. I'm like, wow. Yeah, it's just great to see that.
You know what? The analysis, the analyse mode, when you get some really good data, it's really good, isn't it? I think it's difficult to demonstrate how good it is because you need that kind of data to really make it come alive.
I did one a few months ago for a customer where they didn't want to necessarily pick for production because it was very variable in terms of raw. They wanted to just bring a pallet. I mean, Microsoft are talking about bringing over picking, which would help that. So we just created a view of an analyze mode showing each machine center, and we got specific bins for each machine center, and what each day, what the requirement under each machine center. These are all the raw materials you're going to need by day, and they're just going to use that.
But you need that data to really make it come alive, don't you? But definitely, I think for next year, people need to be thinking about making the most of it. So what else for next year?
If there's a resolution for every single one of our clients that's on SaaS, because when it was on premise, we used to go to customers and say, well, if you upgraded, you could do X. Well, that first part of that statement is just dead now. It's not on SaaS. You are on the upgrade. But you still need a situation where you look at what you're doing and say, is there a better way? Yeah. Now, you do that when you first put Business Central in because you have to, because there wasn't an old way of doing it. But we're all under time pressure. It's the same for us as well as every client. It's kind of, if you're under time pressure, you go back to the way that you can achieve the result because I've got to have it done by X. And the problem then is you don't discover these new ways of doing it. So maybe have a look at one functional area of the application per month or something, and pick a project and just devote.
We can help with that.
2 hours or half a day or something to say, why are we doing this the way we've always done it?
We talked
Is
about
there a
that,
better way?
didn't you, in terms of, from a service perspective, offering something that educates the end users in terms of how they can do things
so
better.
we've got our workshops that are free, which we're going to extend out to be a little bit more educational, all around kind of standard product. The idea of them is that you don't have to spend any money, it's stuff you've already got. So I think that we'll do that, but also just getting close to the customers and making sure they really are using the system in the way that it's meant to be used.
But there's too much information. It's kind of, there's so much on MS Learn now. There's so many different sources of information.
Definitely.
That actually, it does need a guide through it. I think, Liz, because it's kind of, you get bombarded from all these different sources and all the different ways of doing it, and then relating it back to my business and what I specifically need, as opposed to all the different examples that are thrown to me. I think that's really hard for clients.
Yeah.
I had another one this week where a customer, though, again, another go-live assessment, that a lot of them were Mac users, and myself being a Mac user, because we were talking about editing Excel, and they're like, oh, but we can't use that. I'm like, yeah, you can. I said, if you search for OneDrive, there's a setup, you tick a box, and editing Excel opens up Excel online, and you can use it. Oh, and they're all big smiles, and that's great.
I mean, anybody on SaaS who's got Office 365, which pretty much all of them, who's not got that set, should go and find that and do it now, because that's just, a game changer for me, the way that it works in lots of different areas.
Yeah. I mean, you can't talk about 2024 without mentioning Copilot. And we were very...
we said it. Bingo.
Pound in the jar.
But I think this year, as we come to the end of the year, probably what next topic to talk about is where Copilot, at least within Business Central, was a little bit, it didn't add a great amount of value with what they announced. And we did cover this a little bit on the review of directions when we did the last podcast. Agents and where you see agents going in 2025, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Copilot, the kind of previous generation of Copilot, where it got all kind of, you were asking it to do something and it could create. That's in the right circumstances, it's really good usability kind of, it's the one that we did on the Clever app, where it saved, it could create some really complex filters that probably 90% of our customer base, our client base, would have had to look up and kind of research. So in the right circumstances, I think that's right. The way that Microsoft applied it, I think, so creating item descriptions. Yeah, but you don't create item descriptions, enough of them that often. So I think more and more good ideas for Copilot are coming up, and the agent piece where it will assist you.
Do you want to describe that? Just
so
not everybody.
Microsoft have now, they published a video where with the sales order agent, where in effect you could send it an email and it would try and interpret that email and work out what the quote or what the order should be, and kind of build it for you, and suggest it for you. I think there's a lot to go on that. I sat with one of our customers. Microsoft invited, they wanted some end user input into it, so they published an invitation for that. I got one of our customers, thank you Craig at Carver's, to sit through that and look, and he was like, well, this could save 3 or 4 minutes per quotation per order that we're doing, and we've got 20 people in the team that do that all day. And you did the maths on that and you went, wow. So, and that's just the first place. So I think, and I'm getting older, I forget stuff. Having an agent that sits there, watches what you're doing, tells you what you've forgotten, how about this field? How about this field? What's this? What do you want for this? So it comes back with a series of questions and kind of almost... the way I would describe it, it's almost like talking to a person who is then running the screen.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that, you know, came across very much in that preview was that the idea that it could almost predict. I don't know whether this will happen, but almost if you're on a phone call with a sales order processor, and the agent is listening to that phone call, turning that into text. How many times are you on with a customer service agent and they say, just hold a minute while I look that up? You know, I see agents going almost, it will listen to the call and go, they're going to want to know this.
Yeah.
Is this what you want? And and the agent just has to click on it to pull that information up. So it's almost like, there was a Bill Gates saying an awful long time ago about information at your fingertips. You know, that's never quite, it is at your fingertips currently, but you have to know an awful lot.
You have to use your fingertips to get it.
You have to use your fingertips, and you have to know exactly which fingers to push in which order, where to go to look for that information. I think what agents has the potential to do is remove that, I've got to work here for 6 months before I know how to access that information. It's going to, you know, really take it so that actually somebody very new into the organisation, and even people who've been there for a while, it's going to make it much quicker to access, you know, slicker, that I don't have to go into this page and apply this filter and then export it to Excel and put it into a pivot or, you know, lots of things. So I think this comes back to actually a point I was making 5 minutes ago, which is people are really going to have to review, and maybe agents is the thing that will make them review how they process transactions at the moment, how they do processes at the moment, and reimagine those from scratch again.
Well, you can imagine, you know, FD walks in, you know, tell me what I need to know today. Go and tell me the exceptions, the stuff that, you know, this customer, you know, their age debt is longer than usual, and pulling out that kind of information. AI can do that.
I think, yeah. And
it may not be there in release 1, but
I think it's going to be, what's really interesting is that, sorry, Microsoft, you know, you come up with a few examples and then partners get their hands on the technology and really hone those examples into what customers need. And often that's specific. This specific customer has a specific requirement. And, you know, I'm really keen to get our hands on the agent toolkit and kind of see what agents we can create. Because I think, you know, you look at the apps in AppSource and the proliferation of apps that even do the same thing but slightly differently. I think agents will proliferate in exactly the same way, because the one reason Business Central's been successful is the ability to take it and put that last 2% change on it. And we're going to have to do exactly the same thing with agents. Yes, I know they showed that agents will, you know, if there's custom fields on the page, it'll ask you about those as well. Great. But actually, it's kind of custom questions that we want and custom options to kind of...
But that's our job, isn't it, to take it to the real
way?
world. You know, Microsoft did, they'd take it to us, we'll take it to the real world.
There was a phrase on the whole AI thing, there was a phrase I heard, which is kind of hype sells, but knowledge delivers. And I think we are, you know, as our knowledge of what AI is capable of easily has built in the last 18 months, I think we're in the beginning of delivering it to customers. Before now, there's felt like it's a lot of hype.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting.
It is exciting.
You know,
that is exciting.
You know, really, when we get to actually stuff that customers go, I can't do without that. Take that away and I'll kill you.
12 months ago, I think we were all struggling to think of the application. It's like, well,
yeah,
okay, we've got a nice description.
Like, oh, we could do that, you could do that, you could do that.
Some of this in CRM has been quite useful for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a little bit ahead on the AI
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's where the Business Central is being able to ask it in natural language.
Give it the dialogue.
Works it out, the specific kind of, this is the process, this is the data that it needs, and deliver on that. So that's really good.
It's very exciting for next year.
I think, I think it's going to be busier next year than it's ever been. You know, I see no end to the demand. And as I say, I think it's that constant look at process and say, how can we tune this? How can we tune this? Constant improvement. It's not about there's no blocks on that now. It's really down to our clients to say, we've got time. We'll make time for this. It's, are you operational or are you strategic? Which is the more important? Yes, you have to get stuff out the door, but if you don't take a step back and look at what you're doing strategically every so often, you're probably not going to be optimal for long. And I think persuading clients that their systems, that review of their systems is as important as any other part of their business is our job for the next couple of years, probably.
Sounds like a wrap for 2024.
Yeah. Well, just like to say thank you to everybody who's listened to the podcast for was it 4th year, Liam?
Yeah, we're about to go into our 5th year in 2025.
So, and all our clients have a great end of year, Christmas, New Year. We're a bit late for Thanksgiving in the US, but whatever you celebrate, enjoy, and let's go out punching in 2025.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.